Welcome, SCL sports fans, to another episode of the Blues Notes Show. I'm your host, Brandon, with Brandon today. James wasn't able to make it, and we're doing a little bit different setup today with recording on Saturday rather than Sunday, since we have the game tomorrow, but also schedules kind of lining up won't really allow us to do a game or thing tomorrow, but interesting series now with the Blues winning Game 3 and a possibly pivotal game in Game 4. So let's roll right into things. Brandon, with the win the other day for the St. Louis Blues, I know we kind of talked about briefly Game 1 and Game 2 before the game, and we had kind of said different things with how the Blues weren't really getting some contributions from some players and Cam Fowler and some other players, but man, with the way Game 3 kind of went, I would say a lot of those guys kind of pushed aside a lot of the maybe a lot of the things that we had kind of talked about briefly before Game 3. How did you feel about the way Game 3 went on Monday?
It was the exact complete opposite of how I thought it was going to go. I thought it was going to be a closer game than it was. I mean, the Blues they came out, they've done what they've done. They've done what they've done in Game 1 and Game 2, and came out fire and ready to go. And the first period, and they didn't look back in this one, which is nice to see. That they continue to push the Jets. Throughout the whole game. I mean, they were physical from the very beginning. The big fact that they scored less than a minute into the game, I think, is what it was. 50 something seconds, 40 something seconds in the game. I think that right there was huge, and the fact that they had a 2-0, 2-0 lead less than 5 minutes into the game was huge, because it got the crowd going. It got it got Enterprise up in a roar. As I said the other day, it got Enterprise a little loudy. So it was nice to see. It was nice to see. Bennington played well.
Yeah, it was really nice to see. And I mean, man, they definitely came out and they weren't going fast, but this was also something in this series we've seen a lot of. I mean, we've seen a lot of hits, a lot of physicality. I mean, just in this game alone, within the first period, you had, I think it was 35, 38 hits going into Game 3 or into the first period of Game 3. And then you had a total of 54 hits for the Blues, 59 for the Jets. And in total, you had 113 hits. But, man, like you just said, it was huge. It was a huge game. It was a crucial game for them to win, because you didn't want to go into Game 4 down 3-0. And, I mean, you had two big games from Cam Fowler and Pavel Buchnevich. Pavel Buchnevich ended up getting his first career hat trick, and then Cam Fowler becoming one of the first Blue in franchise history to get 5 points in a playoff game, which, I mean, the last person to do this was Cale Makar back in 2022. So, I mean, there's only been 7 other players, including Cale, that's been able to do this kind of franchise record. So it's huge for both of those guys to be able to get this team to a 7-2 win over the Jets in Game 3. Just going over some other things for this game, I mean, or not just this game, but in this series, we saw the Winnipeg Jets coming kind of into this game or into this series being one of the teams that's had one of the top power plays in in the regular season and kind of coming into this series a little bit, we've seen kind of a drastic turnaround for them and the Blues, to where we've seen the Blues go 6 for 15 on this power play, and then a drastic 2 for 10 for the Winnipeg Jets. And I mean, that's something that the Winnipeg Jets have been really big or really good at coming into this series, and then they've just been falling really short, all because of the penalty kill for the St. Louis has been top notch. And it's, I mean, going 40% on the power play and 80% on penalty kill for the first 3 games is huge for this team. I mean, we've always talked anytime going into playoff series that penalty or power play is huge for any kind of series, because it's giving you a man advantage, and you always want to take any kind of advantage that you can get. And here lately, they're going a little under 50% for the power play, and that is huge for the Blues. That's really why they've been staying in some of these games, and it's been really good for the Blues. What do you think?
Yeah. I think I think the big thing is the penalty kill. You're able to keep a really good Jets offense under lock, and not be able to give up easy goals to them. I mean, the Blues have had some bad penalties taken. It was the one the freaking Bolduc penalty the other night after he got grabbed and kind of like spun around to the ground, which I don't understand how that wasn't a 1-for-1. By the way, I thought that should have went both ways. But like those kind of penalties like that, I mean, you can't have those. The fact that they still kill those those penalty kills off, or the power play off for the Winnipeg Jets is huge. It's been huge in the series, and like you said, you're looking at a team that had one of the best power plays all season, and the Blues have virtually almost shut it down.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a really good job with the penalty kill, and I mean, I think it's just coming down to you having the right people for the penalty kill. I mean, you've been having Pavel Buchnevich, you see Oscar Sundqvist, who both of those guys are very good two-way forwards. You got Colton Parayko on the penalty kill, and a lot of other guys who are doing their jobs whenever they're being called up to do whatever they got to do in order for this team to succeed. And it's showing with, I mean, just the numbers that we just kind of went over a little bit. Right. What other kind of factors did you see out of the Blues? Not just, I guess, from game 3, but games 1 and 2 that have you kind of see potential to possibly do more in this series than what they've kind of already done and going into game 4 today or tomorrow?
I like the pressure that they put on the Jets in game 3 in their offense or in the defensive zone for the Jets. The fact that they were, I mean, they got the good old kind of steal from the goalie, and it ended up being Buchnevich's 3rd goal of the game. I think that kind of stuff is going to be has been a big part of how the Blues have, why they've had success against the Jets so far in the series. I know they're down 2-1, but at the same time, I was thinking about it the other day. Like they're 20 minutes away in both games from being up 3-0. 20 minutes away in game 1 and 2 from being up 3-0 in the series. And it's crazy, like some of the little things like that. It was the first time though I'll admit that they played a third period full and through. Like the second period had me, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the second period had me worried a little bit. Like, okay, you're coming out 3-goal lead. Okay, like it's not bad. Like it's awesome that you have that going into it. But Winnipeg can score goals really, really quick. And they had a little bit more pressure, more consistent pressure, I think, in the second period than they did the the Jets had more consistent pressure, more consistent play in the second period than the first and third, which is nice. I mean, which is nice to see too. I wouldn't mind them seeing. I wouldn't mind seeing them have a little bit more kind of physical. I wouldn't say physical play because again, I don't really know. Like it's tough to see which ones.
It's tough to see.
We know what ones would be better off for them. Like where else they can improve across the game.
Sorry, I'm having a little bit of difficulties on my side, but yeah, it was definitely the first time in a third period that they've really shown that they can really come back and do something a little bit more than what what we saw out of the first two games in the series. Just all in all, that entire game, they kept Winnipeg to within arm's length the entire game. They never really had a really good chance to get really back into this game. I was talking to a couple of guys about it, and that the probably the most crucial point in Game 3 probably was the Cole Perfetti callback goal. And I mean that's something that they lost out on a goal. They didn't get anything on that power play that came just a little bit afterwards, and then to go up, or pretty much like it seemed like that took a lot of the wind out of Winnipeg's sails. And you didn't really see them come back until the third period from that, when they scored their first goal. And then from there it just seemed like you didn't really see much momentum come from that first goal, just because of the events that perspired before that. And then just a little bit after that first goal, you saw St. Louis come back and get their fourth goal. But would you kind of agree with that kind of being a little bit of a momentum turner? Because I mean that alone, that could have turned a lot of the momentum around for Winnipeg if that goal would have counted for Cole Perfetti. I mean, a lot of people would probably argue that goal should have counted and everything, with this goal being inside the net and everything, but there wasn't really conclusive evidence. And that's one thing that the NHL has always been good at. Like, you have to have conclusive evidence for anything like this to really count or be overturned. And for that to be not more or less overturned, but not go in the way of Winnipeg, it was a huge moment for the Blues.
Yeah, I think that moment, looking back at Game 3, that moment had a huge spot, because I'm not going to lie to you. I thought the puck was in. I thought it was past the goal. I thought it was enough. And I know it's hard because of the angles and this and that, but I thought it was in the net. Obviously, you can't tell that puck was fully across the line. I thought it was in the net. I thought it was a good goal. But I mean, it's what it is. I mean, like I said, there was no conclusive evidence that puck was fully across the line. Like, you couldn't see the goal line. It was hard to tell from the angle, even from inside the net, from above. It was hard to tell exactly where the puck was along that line. But yeah, I think that was a big part. Like I mentioned, the second period was a little more worrisome because the Jets did have a little bit of a little bit more pressure. Oh, where'd he go? Okay, well, I'll go right here by myself for a little bit. The Jets did have a little bit more pressure in the third, or in that second period. There he is.
Sorry, I'm having difficulties this morning.
In the second period than they did in the first and third period. So yeah, I think that would have been a big turning point in that game. I mean, if that goal would have counted and they, went right back on the power play within, 2-3 minutes and they scored again, you're looking at a 3-2 hockey game instead of a 3-0 hockey game, which is a big difference in the playoffs. I mean, you're seeing in the opposite end of things in a series that I thought was going to be a little bit closer with the Oilers and Kings. I mean, they're scoring goals like no tomorrow.
Yep.
They're just putting it in the net every second.
I mean, even last night's game for Edmonton, you see how events kind of prescribed. You see 2 goals in 10 seconds.
Right. That's what I mean. Like when the Jets have that type of offense to do that, to put goals in the net really quick, but they haven't really been. I mean, on the Winnipeg side of things, you got two crap goals by Sheffley, one off the stick of Fowler. It was Fowler or Falk, one of the two.
One of the two, yeah.
Rolled up the stick and just happened to go over the back of Bennington, and then the other one was, I don't even remember how it happened.
Was that the Connor? God damn, was that Connor's goal that he had that went underneath the pad? That you may have been thinking of, that whenever he got dished from under the blue line and then just kind of squeaked under the pad.
It might have been that one, yeah. But again, I mean, like Winnipeg, the shots or not the shots, but the shots on goal for Winnipeg aren't aspiring to goals. I mean, they scored 5 in the first. One of them was an empty netter. So 4 goals in the first game, 2 goals in the second game, 2 goals, and 2 goals in the third game, which,
yeah,
I mean, I know there was 2 goals, but
I mean, the 2 goals that they did score, I felt like Bennington. So the first one, I don't think he really had a chance with, because it was
the Connor one either. There was no way he was going to stop that one.
Yeah, and I a lot of that game, once that goal got called back in the first period, I more or less kind of figured the Blues kind of had that victory, because they had been shutting down Winnipeg.
The first, it was in the second, wasn't it?
Cole Perfetti's? It might have.
Yeah, because they were on the far side of the ice. Bennington was.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was in the second period. But
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But I mean, that's just something that, I mean, if that gets called back, and with how much the Blues defense and Bennington was already kind of shutting down Winnipeg, that's a huge moment for the Blues. And then just to see them that they only got 2 goals out of that game, when, I mean, it's big. Now, with all of this, it's kind of a frustrating moment then, because to me personally, probably for St. Louis as well, because, I mean, seeing around social media a lot, you see a lot of Winnipeg fans and everything saying, oh, this time a few years ago in 2018, the Jets were in the same predicament where they went down 6-2 against Minnesota, and then they come back and win 5 in 5 games. I don't know. I went back and kind of looked at that series a little bit, and this series doesn't look anything compared to like what that series is. Yeah, they came out and dominated the first 2 games in Winnipeg. St. Louis came out and dominated this game in Game 3. I don't know if this series is going to look totally similar to that series, because, I mean, St. Louis, I would say, is a whole hell of a lot better than what the Minnesota Wild team was back in 2018.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause, I mean, you could easily come into St. Louis tomorrow and see the Blues come out and win that game, or, I mean, they could lose, but we want to see them come out with a win and even the series up, and then you're going back into Winnipeg and with a even series, and you have a lot of potential pivotal game in Game 4 where you could see a lot of momentum going back into Winnipeg, come back into St. Louis's favor, and the series could be totally different coming into Game 4, even Game 5, with how this upcoming game tomorrow turns out.
Yeah, I mean,
so,
even if you look at the 19 series between the Blues and the Jets, I mean, it was 2-2 going back to Winnipeg, if I remember right. Blues get that win, get that last second Jaden Schwartz goal to go up, 3-2 in the series in Game 5, and they come back and win it in St. Louis in Game 6. So I mean, it could easily turn into something like that too. I mean, it's just. It's playoff hockey. I mean, you got to play your absolute best time to get where you want to be. I mean, it's the Winnipeg Jets are not a team you want to mess around with and let them back into the thing. You have the momentum right now. If you're the Blues, you've outplayed Winnipeg in how many periods? 7 of the 9 periods that have been played in this series so far. You just have to keep it. Winnipeg they looked tired the other night. Thursday night. They looked awful.
They definitely looked tired, and I mean, a lot of the reason I think they probably were starting to just try to get under the toes of St. Louis after how many minutes into the third period that they were already trying to get under the skin of a lot of the St. Louis players. It just that one thing after another thing. You saw Luke Shen, you saw Miller, you saw a bunch of guys just all of a sudden trying to do everything they can to try to get St. Louis to falter and get a power play.
Right.
But I mean, a lot of the time that they were staying poised, they were not giving up stupid penalties in situations like that. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we need this team to do is stay poised, stay disciplined for moments like this, because they're going to have moments like this in this series where if you go up, Winnipeg is going to try to get under your skin and try to get some sort of momentum back in their favor to try to get points in order to get back into games like this where they go down by 1, 2, 3 goals. Because I mean, we saw it in Game 1 where the Blues were up 3-0 into the first period, and then we see them come back and win the game 4-5, 5-3. I almost said 4-3, but it was 5-3. I mean, you see key guys. I mean, a lot of these guys have been putting in their contributions. I know we talked a little bit about Cam Fowler earlier, kind of touching back a little bit on him. That I mean, this is something that we've seen him in games 1 and 2 just go 1 assist in each of the first 2 games, and we see him come out and getting a goal and 4 assists in the other day's game. And it's those are huge moments for key guys, and you got to have your key guys showing up in key games coming into this series. And we saw it from Cam Fowler. We've seen it from Pavel Buchnevich as well. Mm-hmm. And you've kind of seen a little bit. I don't want to jinx things because things tend to happen after things have been said, but you see kind of a little bit of that playoff hellbuck come back in Game 3, which I don't want to jinx the Blues by any means, because it's still a lot of series left in this series. Mm-hmm. Got a lot of games left in this series. So, I mean, you see him falter a little bit in Game 3, and I don't know. And we kind of saw a glimpse of it too in Games 1 and 2 when you see him make mistakes with letting pucks get in the net whenever it's high above his shoulder. Mm-hmm. And you, in the midst of that too, you have a really good offense and a really good defense with Winnipeg. Yeah, bounce that team back into the win column for both games 1 and 2, and those are just things that we really got to watch out for St. Louis coming into Game 4. Yeah, and I know we're Go ahead. Sorry.
I will say that I think the big difference, and it was what the Jets head coach, I think is it Scott Arnell. I don't want to mess up his name. Arnell, however you say his name.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. He said they wanted to keep the Blues out of the front of out in front of Hellebuck, because that's where you get those kind of weird rebounds and whatnot. And that's where the Blues actually, I think, succeeded more in game 3 than they did game 1 and 2. You look at game 1 and 2, all their shots were, they were from, I guess I wouldn't say the point. They were more from the off to the sides, and the Kyrou goal, the Thomas
even both
goal,
the Buchnevich goals.
Yeah. I mean, both of those were both. I mean, the first Buchnevich goal was about as
as crazy as you get him.
Weird of a thing is, I mean, he literally kicked it to himself and then luckily enough tapped it in with the stick. If not, I don't think that one would have counted. But even like his third goal was, it was a goal we haven't seen in game 1 or 2, which I think was the big difference. A big difference in this one. Cam Fowler's goal was another one. The dude came with speed and basically outskated the Jets defenders in that point. And I know I don't want to say it was a setup play, but it's almost kind of like it was a setup, like it was a play that was set up.
That's something that the Blues have been really good with coming down in this the last third stretch of the season. You saw a lot of the defense more picking up and getting into the offense and running those types of plays to where a lot of teams I don't think know how to really pick up on those type of guys because they're not used to seeing defensemen just
don't expect it.
Yeah, you don't see them skating as fast as what Cam Fowler was up through the middle of the ice, getting into the zone with Robert Thomas, and then just being right there on the doorstep in order to get a really good goal in the top corner. You don't see very many defensemen jumping up into the play and doing those types of shots a lot of times, and that's something that is gone really good in Blues' favor. And it's all even seeing Torchenko getting into the mix of a lot of it all. I mean, you don't see him very much getting a whole lot of points or anything, and seeing how he was able to get things kind of going for himself, getting the first playoff goal of his career the other night. Those are huge moments for the Blues, and it'll be interesting to see how Game 4 is when you have a lot of momentum going back into another home game. I know we're going to do potentially a pre-game show for Game 4. I don't know if we'll have time for it tomorrow or not before the game is at noon, but I guess what are some key things kind of going into Game 4? Obviously, it's a pivotal game that you could see momentum swing in either team's favor going back into Winnipeg, but what are some key things that you could see going into Game 4 tomorrow?
I still like the idea of getting a net front presence in front of Hellebuck. He did not see the puck very well the other night, so I think continuing to do that, getting Sundqvist, getting Torchenko, getting Walker, whoever Fasca in front of the net, somebody just to be there, and get the pucks, move the puck around like you did in Game 3. I mean, they were all over the place. They're physical. I think that you have to continue the physicality of this series. If you let Winnipeg control the physicalness of the physicality of this series, you're gonna lose in 5. And there won't be another one after. There won't be another game after that. Just defensively, continue to keep being defensively strong across the thing. Get things out of the way of Binnington. Let Binnington control his net. He's had a heck of a series so far. So I think those would be the 3 things that I would look at is get in front of Hellebuck, make it a little nasty in front of them, keep the offensive pressure going, and then kind of let Binnington do what he does.
Yeah. I think if St. Louis is able to do a lot of those things that you kind of just touched on, I feel like they can easily come out and take this game. But I shouldn't say easily, because no game in the playoffs is going to be easy. But I feel like they would have a good chance at come away with a win. You're going to obviously come out and see in Winnipeg coming out being probably aggressive on this game, and they're going to want to try to get points early, kind of like what St. Louis did to kind of drown out the any kind of momentum that St. Louis has kind of built up. But it's going to be an interesting game to watch. It's going to be the first earlier game of this series, so I don't know if that will have any kind of effect. We've seen St. Louis kind of come out in games earlier in the regular season when they have earlier games. You didn't really see them kind of play it as it was kind of a different feel to the game that I noticed. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out with it being a noon game. We're going to do what we can to get on and have a pregame show. We'll be a little bit more different things that we'll touch on. Obviously, key parts of the game, who players to watch for, and all that. But any kind of closing remarks before we get going for the day, Brandon?
No, it's as big of a game as any, because it could determine your season. And you don't want to go. You want to go back to Winnipeg 2-2. You don't want to be down 3-1, because if you go down 3-1, it's. I don't want to say it's impossible, but going into Winnipeg Game 5 down 3-1, that's tough. That'd be a tough one to come back from. So I think the momentum is in favor of the Blues right now after that big win on Thursday. You have to keep things rolling, keep things trucking along, and keep playing the game that you've played since the Four Nations face off is wrapped up and whatnot. I think the Blues have a really good shot of even in this series tomorrow afternoon.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, if they're able to keep up like that style of play that they had going into that last third of the season, or even that style of hockey that they had going into that stretch of that last bit of the that 12-game winning streak, if they can kind of keep that momentum rolling that we saw yesterday, you potentially have a shot at evening up this series.
Absolutely.
And one thing that didn't touch on earlier that probably should have brought up a little bit sooner than this is that, I mean, you're coming into Monday's game for Game 3 with a home winning streak. I mean, you've been playing so well at home that this is the time that like you came into the series or end of the season with a 12 consecutive home game
you've won
streak.
13 straight at home now.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's big for the Blues. That shows that they're really good at playing at home, and it's all the tells are there for the Blues that you are going to potentially see a good game coming into tomorrow at Enterprise Center. But with that, we are gonna jump off for today, and we will be sure to be here tomorrow, hopefully, for a pregame show. As always, if you guys can please like, subscribe, comment, however you can, any way that you guys can help us out. Yeah. That would be huge for the channel. As always, thank you guys for tuning in, and let's go Blues.